We're very happy tonight to have Bill Yarrow in town from Chicago. He's originally from Philadelphia. Went to Swarthmore College for a bachelor's degree, and then Northwestern University for a master's, I believe, in creative writing. He's lived in New York City, and he now lives in the Chicago suburb. I felt especially close to one of his poems that I read in his selected poems, The Big of Love, because my wife and I cleaned out the basement this last week, and he has a really stellar poem called The Basement of Desires, which I'm here to read tonight. He has another poem that I particularly enjoyed called Asbestos Candlestick. He has strung together aphorisms, a large number of them, and from that store of aphorisms has been able to craft a poem that is, I think, quite brilliant in its mastery of language and insights. Bill has published altogether 3 books of poetry: Pointed Sentences, Blasphemer, and most recently, The Big of Love, which is a large book of 196 pages. It is, in fact, a selection of poems. He's also published 5 chapbooks, including the most recent one, We Saw It All Coming. You can imagine what that is. It has a political reference. If you watch MSNBC, you'll have no trouble relating to it. The Big of Love has, the very title of his selected poems has mystified some people. He'll give a more thorough explanation, but big is a slang term meaning interest, the interest that you pay. And so the Big of Love would be the extra payment one that pays often unexpectedly for and because of loving. So I'd like to introduce Bill Yarrow.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, David. Thank you, Crazy Wisdom Bookstore, and thanks to all of you for coming tonight. It's a pleasure to see all of you. I'm going to start out with a couple poems from my second book called Blasphemer, to give you a sense of what I'm all about. This poem is called There's No Crying in Poetry. There's no crying in poetry. There's no crying in poetry, says Coach Bukowski, barnacle gnarled, stomping on the ground behind third base. But the poetry pitcher is crying. The poetry catcher is sobbing. The poetry shortstop is bawling. The poetry center fielder is doubled over, weeping bitterly. Bukowski shakes his head. Jesus, how the hell did I wind up here? He yells, hey, there's no crying in fucking poetry, you hear me? But no one on the poetry team is listening. But in the beer garden across the street, the bar poets, looking up, are waving gloves at the balls sailing toward them. They stretch their hands above their heads and call out, I got it. No, I got it. I said I got it. And then they collide and lie like kinks in a tangled hose. The ball lands and takes a bad hop, hits the barmaid smack on the lip. Don't you cry. Don't you dare, she hears Bukowski saying. And though it really hurts, and though she really wants to, she doesn't. And this one is called The New Blurb. Now, as you publish books, you have to go to friends or colleagues or others to write blurbs for your book, for the back of your book. And often the blurbs are very flattering and wonderful and complimentary and panegyrics to the genius of the particular writer who asked for them. But I've noticed recently that over the last few years, blurbs have gotten a little edgier, a little harder, a little less kind. a little more acerbic. And so this is called the new Blurb. It has an epigraph, and that is, the old Blurb is predictable in its praise and universally ignored. So this is the new Blurb. 1. This book touches your heart, but not in a good way. 2. Every day I thank God that books like this are hard to find. 3. To give you a sense of how infectious this book is, after I read it, I felt sick. 4. There's nothing that can be said about this book that hasn't already been said about some other book. 5. This is just the kind of book I never read, and you should too. 6. This book does the work of imagination for you, and it is hard to imagine how it could be any worse. 7. If I truly understood all that's in this book, I would go mad, and I don't have the insurance coverage for that. 8. I found this book, being not hard to write, very easy to ignore. 9. Don't let the fact that the writing in this book is terrible dissuade you from buying it. Support independent presses. 10. This book proves the truth of the falsehood. Anyone can be a writer. Okay, so those are some poems from Blasphemer, and the poems in that book are a little blasphemous in terms of subject matter, approach, style, form, all kinds of things. And so that's my more experimental book. That was my second book. Let me read you a few poems from my first book, which came out in 2012 from Blazebox Books. This is called, this book is called Pointed Sentences. And let me read you the opening poem in this book. This is called Florid Psychosis. On the advice of a friend, I've stopped dreaming. As a result, I've developed a florid psychosis in which everything I've dreamed for the last 33 years is now real. I have new friends, a new job, my dead relatives have all come back, I'm half my weight, have all my hair, reside in Prague. It's February 1924. Kafka won't die until June. Freud's 67. He's just published The Ego and the Id. My superego refuses to read it. Lottie Reininger is working on the cutouts of Prince Ahmed. I bought a radio embroidered with pearls. I tuned it to the future, but it only plays the sleeping past. And this one is called Greyhound. We've all traveled in cars, and trains, and on buses, and I did that as well. And so this is from my early traveling experiences. Greyhound. I'm riding on a bus, sitting next to a woman eating a yellow tomato. We both need a bath. Outside the window is Kansas, then Nebraska. I note that in my ratty journal. Take a banana from a paper bag and pretend to shoot myself. All the reading lights are out. No one can see me. It's the chilling middle of the night. I hallucinate my future. I'm a CPA with asthma. I'm a zoologist with MS. I'm a baby who died of SIDS. The bus pulls into a rest stop. I buy a grilled cheese, a vanilla shake, some corn chowder. I covet a pearl button denim shirt. In the men's room, I read the offerings on the vending machines. Two truckers come and go, talking of Twopole. Stumbling back to my seat, I stare out a dirty window into the sanitary blackness. We're 300 miles from dawn. And this one is called She Waited for Him. Station after station, she waited for him. And he waited for her. That was part of the problem, misalignment. But neither understood the geography required for connection. How locus expands, how the Atlantic Ocean becomes Texas. When he held her, he thought of Racine. And when she held him, she thought of Cheyenne. Of course, there was nothing in between except for love. But what is love? Perfume worn by saints. So they stalked cathedrals for the odor, breathed in sandalwood, candles, holiness, mold. And when their noses were full, they took that to mean that they had found it. We all want to believe we found love, but what smells like love may not be love at all. That's the cross. It may be just worship. And one more from Pointed Sentences. This one's called Four Noble Lies. When Carlotta left me, I cried into my soup. I shriveled into harsh mathematics. A decade later, I was living on Iowa Street with Karen. She had goldfish and good taste. I loved her for her fleshy neck. We drank sinewy Dos Equis and played mahjong. In March, I developed that cruel facial tic. That precipitated the divorce. At the thought of losing her, my heart contracted into a span. But I knew one day I'd replace her with a brutally neutered cat. So poems sometimes sound autobiographical, but of course they're not. And they all intuit some kind of speaker, and my poems do as well. So that poem, completely imaginary. I've been married for 41 years. We did have 2 cats, and I did not neuter either of them or anything like that. Okay, so let me read a few more poems from Blasphemer. And this one is called, has anybody, I know it's not in the fashion anymore, but has anybody ever read No Exit by Jean-Paul Sartre? Yeah, okay. Do you remember the last line of that play? No. Anybody remember the last line? How is that people? Yes, okay. So my poem is called Poetry is Other People. Is there nothing out there but misery, tales of human fading, nomenclatures of a fallen body? Even if we forbade the saddest subjects, the tornadoes would still be there. The typhoon, the mudslide, the angry snowsquall, the red volcano, the bridge collapsing, the window crashing onto the sidewalk, the flames leaping from roof to roof, from car to car, from tree to tree, insolent and snickering, would still be there. The poems that are not destruction, what are they but decay? Did you read the one about the depression of the poet's brother? The one about the bulimia of the poet's daughter? The one about the alcoholism of the poet's mother? The one about the leukemia of the poet's father? The one about the dementia of the poet's grandmother? The one about the divorce of the poet's sister? The one about the autism of the poet's nephew? The one about the drowning of the poet's uncle? The one about the diabetes of the poet's aunt? The one about the disappearance of the poet's neighbor? The one about the incarceration of the poet's friend? The one about the suicide of the poet? We live where it's light, but right where it's dark. Thrill at the thundercloud, shun the sunshine. Pine for midnight, worship the ontology of catastrophe. The poet says, somebody's done for. The poet says, you must change your life. The poet says, my mind's not right. The poet says, I weep like a child for the past. The poet says, I must lie down where all the ladders start. The poet says, if I stepped out of my body, I would break. So that poem ended with a number of lines from famous poets, and this is a poem with a line from a famous novelist, Gustave Flaubert. This poem is called Flaubert Eats Breakfast with His Mom. They were sitting at the breakfast table waiting for more toast when she looked up at him and said, "Your mania for sentences has dried up your heart." "That's not true, Mother. Louise did that in Gallup in the middle class. You're just upset my fruit bowl is empty. Come, my darling, let's take a walk in the garden and water the desert of my heart. The future may surprise us yet." "Gustave, my son, my star, you are incorrigible." "Yes, Mother, I am. But give me your arm. The eggs will have to wait. Look, the sun is bleeding on the flowers. The clouds, soft guardians of virtue, they will protect us. God is out walking his dog, while over us white bees hover like angels of clotted milk." Okay, so that's Blasphemer. Let me read you a few poems from The Vig of Love, and then if there's time, then I will read a couple new poems. So poems often come out of experience, but they don't always stay in experience. They don't always have to stay true to experience. I'm always looking for ways to make the poem work as a poem, and so whatever details I need to change in order for that to happen, I feel comfortable doing. I don't feel chained to the truth in that way. There's a different kind of truth, I think, that works in poems. This poem is largely true, but not wholly true, and it's called "A Debt No Honest Man Can Pay." Ed asked me to talk about the Vig of Love. So, the Vig. There's a word that means interest. It comes from the world of loan sharks, and so it's originally it's a Russian term, vigorish, and but adapted here. And it's I define it in the book as interest on a loan you'll never repay. That is your love relationships, whether it's marital, friend, or family, or whatever it might be. So this is the first poem in the book, and it's called "A Debt No Honest Man Can Pay." I'm sitting here listening to Nebraska, and it's breaking my heart, not because it's plaintive and brilliant, but because it's taking me back to 1982. And our baby, not even 2 pounds, in intensive care in New York Hospital, far away. We live in Queens, it's what we can afford. But we see her every day, well, one of us does, via the subway, where I sit listening to Nebraska. And Springsteen is singing about paying a debt no honest man can pay. And I'm thinking, what is that debt? It's marriage, right? It's love, right? It's the privilege of having a kid, right? Not in the song, but in life, in someone's life, in my life. It's a debt, a brutally honest debt. But you never pay it back. No one can. Not with money, not with time, not with compassion, not with care, not with what I make, not even with what you make. I'm not talking hospital bills. I'm talking what forever can never be repaid. So listen. You listen to a song whose line hits you in your kidney, and you double over as if you're pregnant, a pregnant woman. Not close enough to term, but you birth something anyway. And one day, it becomes your heart. And then your heart gets pregnant, and it gives birth to your future, which you learn is made entirely of your past. A past you're listening to a song, a concept, a whole album, again and again, over and over. The album, Nebraska, which never gets dull, never gets tired, never gets old. So Ed mentioned the poem, The Basement of Desire, and let me read this one to you. I guess we can all relate, and so the title of the poem, of course, is about the basement that I cleaned out as Ed cleaned out his, this one after flood in our house. But the title also is an allusion to the William Carlos Williams poem, which is called The Attic of Desire. So this is the basement of desire. Sooner or later, you realize that all the leftover wood you've been saving, all the scraps of PVC pipe in the utility closet, all the plumbing nuggets you've squirreled away, all the used sandpaper, loose roofing nails, railroad spikes, iron filings, copper battery caps, coils of solder, cylinders of tin, carats of glue, single hinges, tubs of bulbs, nylon cord, bladeless hacksaws, rusted caulk guns, bent nails, blunt screws, broken hammers, brittle gaskets, sleeves of galvanized washers, leftover shims, insulation kits, cans of mineral spirits, screen door hardware, drawers of squeeze nozzles, noxious solvents. The whole haberdashery of plastic pieces, sheathing connectors, and containers is just a metaphor of shifting meaning, representing sequentially and recursively your childhood, your body, your marriage, and your mind. I created a character that I've been writing poems about. This character is named Crenshaw. So here's one of the Crenshaw poems. This is called Crenshaw on a Boat. We're floating on a chain of lakes, eating Rice Krispies out of a bucket. The sun is a soft lozenge, medicating a bright red sky. Water skiers hold onto their slackening ropes like love itself. On Party Island, the icy drunks have seized control. Crenshaw has his hand inside Margaret. No one is shocked. He was born brazen. But when he starts it on the Jews, Arnie gets mad and pushes him over the side. We let him tread water, then swing around to pick him up. Justice? Regret? No. Margaret wants him back. I like to use allusions in my poems, and the next one I'm going to read has a lot of allusions, the title included, to the Book of Job, which of course is a wonderful, wonderful work to read for many reasons, and especially for writers and poets. So this one is called Blackish by the Reason of the Ice. I was in the basement. I was in the basement with Sarah, who was reading Job to the baby. I was standing in the basement thinking about Uncle Conrad's terrible black tie, 100% polyester, which he wore to the funeral last Tuesday. I was in the basement with Sarah, whose eyes were eyes of flesh, whose eyes were like the eyelids of morning, who had made a covenant with mine eyes. And I said to her, Sarah, do you take it that with your eyes? And she said, what? And I said, do you take it that with your eyes? And she said, stop being stupid. Can you hold the baby? And I said, I had not been as infants which never saw light. And she said, sharpening her eyes upon me, take the fucking baby. And I took the baby, and I rocked the baby, and the baby rocked me. And as I comforted my son, and as my son comforted me, I remembered that they called Edward Dahlberg the Job of American letters because he suffered in his art. Many there are who labor like slaves and suffer neglect. Does that make them Jobs? Sarah, I called. Do you take it that with your eyes? But she was lost in the text, and heard me not. And then, for just a moment, I too felt lost, like a child. Like someone who meets with darkness in the daytime and gropes in the midday as in the night. Of course, I knew we cannot order our speech by reason of darkness alone, any more than Uncle Conrad could have worn a different tie to the wake. For life is wind, and death is astonishment. Sarah, I implored, take the baby, for he hath made me weary. And Sarah took the baby with her eyes. This one is called Libby, Lottie, and Carlotta. Libby tried divination. No answer. Lottie turned to numerology, a big 0. Carlotta was interested in philately, but she found that sticky. Stay away from miracles, Libby. Do not tattoo the future, Lottie. What doesn't kill you will make you cocky, Carlotta. Biology is destiny to this extent. Our bodies lead us places we otherwise wouldn't go. Darkness is a long arc, my darlings. No one escapes the entry into dirty sex, but you control the ugliness of the encounter. Pain is never love. I don't care what others say. It hurts my heart to read your poems. You deserve a knight, a Christ, commensurate with your beauty, someone halfway decent. Listen, there's a place where parents don't drink, where uncles don't rape, where brothers don't die. Where is it? All I know is it's not on the floodplain. A couple more? Like 2 more, or?
Yeah, we need a two-poem warning.
2 more, okay, all right. Would you like to hear my Trump poems, or would you like to hear just regular
Let me
poems?
be clear. You've got 10 minutes unless the other reader shows up.
Oh, I have 10 minutes?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Unless the other reader shows up.
You'll let me know.
We'll let you know.
I have to tell you a funny story. I'll tell you a funny story.
You'll hear a scream.
When I was in, just after college, I think it was just after college, or maybe in my senior year of college, I went to Glassboro State College for a concert. And the concert was John Prine, Jim Croce, John Prine, and Bonnie Raitt. Okay. Bonnie Raitt is coming in to New Jersey from upstate New York. There's a terrible snowstorm, and she's stranded somewhere, so she can't get there. So they ask Jim Croce and John Prine to, instead of doing their regular sets of, whatever it was, 45 minutes each, to extend them and do like, 75 minutes, okay? So Jim Croce does 75 minutes, John Prine does 75 minutes, and then the concert's supposed to be over, and then Bonnie Raitt shows up, and then she does another hour. It was one of the great, so I'm just thinking of, extending my time and then having the other reader show up. Okay. This poem is called The Secret of Belief. And in some sense, this is a true story. The reference to archaic torsos has to do with the Rilke poem, Archaic Torso of Apollo, and you may know that there's a famous line in that poem, which is, you must change your life. So this is called The Secret of Belief. I don't believe in symbols, but there's a hole in my living room window in the shape of a bird. A hailstone punched out the profile outline of a nightingale or bluebird or blackbird or thrush. Well, I have no idea really. I can't tell a robin from a vulture or a seagull from an eagle. A bird of some kind though, head, beak, torso, tail, with spindly bird feet, clearly in the broken pane. Were I a believing man, I'd almost accept that there was meaning in the shape of broken glass. But nature has no purpose. Accidents are impervious to intelligence. The random is no icon. Unless there really is a God, unless unbelief is a bagatelle, unless this is a true calling card of the Paraclete. Listen up, archaic torsos. Here's the secret of belief. But shh, it's not for publication. You must revise your mind. So let me read a couple of my new poems. I'm interested in doing translation, but I'm not any good at languages. So I have a series of incompetent translations. And I'll read a couple of these. The first one is a translation of El Desdichado by Gerard de Nerval. I am twilight's pissoir, the orphan's inclination. My star is dead, my constellation crushed. The Prince of Aquitaine has fallen and cannot rise. I am the shadow of wax-winged slain. In the tomb, in the outre tomb bay, I see the Sea of Capri, the Hearse of Merci, La Lune des Pantoums, La Place du Caprice. Désolé, désolé, where the vinegar and the wine are one. Cherie, I am naked and red. Give me back my color and my clothes. Give me back my singularity, my tristesse, my photo ID. She sits in a gondola and burnishes her arms. She puts a piquant radish in her mouth. She grabs a loofah and wipes the rainbow from her neck. This is a poem after Baudelaire. It's called Secondhand Spleen. I am the king of pleurisy, rich and fortunate and wholly old. I despise my raven instructors, pale as falcons on a gibbet, tepid as dogs in the mouths of bells, solitary as a pimpled face on a black balcon. The clown is distraught, his body cruel. Literature shall transform this tomb into a fleur-de-lis fit for a whore. The poor prince does not know how to rework the impudent parquet or relieve the source of the baby squirrel. Who can extirpate the corrupt savant or bathe Vienna in what must be Rome? Old joys are impotent souvenirs, chauffeured by gray-green forgetfulness.
Could you read Asbestos Candle?
Asbestos Candlestick?
Yeah.
Well, this is a series of aphorisms, so at Ed's request, I'll read it. Asbestos Candlestick. Love, the wound which never heals. We say soulmate, we mean self-mate. Are there any pleasures not intensified by infrequency? It takes so much effort to be unhappy. Where do people get the strength? Marriage is a martini in which misery is the vodka and happiness the vermouth. You never fall out of love. You just forget. It's rare that we shoot ourselves in the foot. More often, it's in the heart. There's a sucker born every minute. S-U-C-C. Paradise is comparative. It's impossible to feel through a scab. We say the sun breaks through the clouds, when all along it's the wind behind the scenes that is orchestrating the miracle. When people talk about solitude, they are just making a virtue out of loneliness. Loss redefines lead. Fire caused by lightning is indistinguishable from fire lit by a match. The ostrich puts its head in the sand, not to be invisible, but so it won't have to see what's going to happen to it. When applied to weather, the words failure and success have no meaning. A life lived by whim is a life of nauseating incoherence. The ravines are crowded with the corpses of luck. Humility, the virtue of the repressed, is just life. The body is text. Life is context. There is selfishness and there is selflessness. There is nothing in between. Let me end with a couple of political poems. I have a new chapbook out, put out by a guy in Indiana, Bill Allegrezza, who wanted to publish 100 political chapbooks for the first 100 days of President Trump's presidency. And he mailed each of the chapbooks individually to the White House. They're all online. If you go to LOCOFO chaps, Locofo chaps, you can see them all. You can download them. They're all free. But I'll read a couple poems from here. This is called We All Saw It Coming. We all saw it coming. The snakes and ascendants, the dark satanic milling around, the troops of the nouveau greedy, the safety nets on fire, the cesspool of superiority flooding the brazen stage. We all saw it coming, the Pete Moss racist, the neonatal Nazis, King Lear, Queen Get Rude, the bully trident planted, the ratcheting down of sense. We all saw it coming, the tide of crude insurgents, complacency swept away, virtue's camel toe exposed, the nipple slip of decency, the gangbang of the plebiscite, the fondling of the tit of turpitude. We all saw it coming. I don't mean we saw it coming. I mean I saw it coming and did nothing. I'm going to finish with this poem, which accounts for the image on the chapbook, which is it's Saint Sebastian thrown into the Cloaca Maxima, the great sewer of Rome. And so this is called Ways of Seeing Karachi, and I guess it's my idea about how we might recover from where we are. I become interested in Karachi, Ludovico Karachi, Bolognese contemporary of Shakespeare, early Baroque artist, cousin of Agostino and Annibale, whose 1612 painting, Body of Saint Sebastian thrown into the Cloaca Maxima, is a masterpiece of the frozen moment. Sebastian is limp, in a sheet supported by muscular soldiers. His hands hang down, his eyes are shut. Is he asleep? More likely unconscious. After all, he is about to be thrown into the great sewer of Rome. Unless one rotates the image, then he becomes beautifully vertical, his dreaming body like a sleeping bird floating in warm, soft air. Then the closed fists and flexed forearms of the executioners are seen impotently attempting to hold him down, but nothing human can prevent his rise. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. It was well worth our while to have you come all the way from Chicago.
Thank you.